Star Wars, The Mandalorian and Grogu has dropped in theaters, and this film is really good. And you know what? It is absolutely insane to think that this is our first Star Wars film in like 7 years. And even though this film is much smaller in terms of size and scale, I still think it makes for a really strong return for Star Wars to the big screen. And I'll just start off with some background, just my quick thoughts on that original series. I think seasons 1 and 2 are absolutely amazing, and even though season 3 is heavily flawed, I still had a pretty good time with it overall. And now we have this film, and I was a little bit concerned going in. I was like, okay, so how are they going to carry over everything that was so great about that original show into a movie? And now that I have seen the film, I think it manages to really capture the heart and spirit of that original show in spades. I loved this movie, and I think it makes for a great cinematic continuation of everything that really worked about that show. And I think something that this movie captures at the core of its story that also was at the core of that original show is the relationship and dynamic between Mando and Grogu. This film gives that dynamic a lot of room to breathe within that film, because I really appreciate that. So I truly believe it to be, underneath all of the spectacular action and the larger story, it is that core dynamic between Mando and Grogu that really gives it a very heartwarming layer to just the whole thing. And I really think that's something that's true about the original show as well. And because there's many things that really work about that original show, I do think at the core that pulls everything together is the relationship and dynamic between Mando and Grogu, and we see that reflected in this film. Like I said, it's a really good continuation from that series. And beyond that, this film has a really nice sense of world building, right? Where Mando is exploring all these different planets, these different settings with these various different unique creatures. And it just really makes the galaxy feel very vast and large, despite the smaller scale nature of the film itself. And I mention this as a big positive because it feels like a lot of more recent Star Wars projects have made the Star Wars galaxy feel so small and so just sort of contained, where I feel like the Star Wars galaxy is just a vehicle for pure creativity. It is large, and there's so many possibilities for what you could do with that. So when you see a project that takes advantage of those endless possibilities of the Star Wars galaxy, I greatly appreciate that, alright? It was just so much fun to seeing all these different creatures and everything. It really just captured what I love about Star Wars, and the more we explore about the Star Wars galaxy, I think the better. Like I said, just tremendous world building through the globe-trotting nature of this story. And then you have the action in the film, which, like I mentioned before, is absolutely spectacular. From the first moment through the rest of the film, you are going planet to planet, always with a new big action set piece, and it never gets repetitive because it is always in a new location, and it is just so well done. It is absolutely awesome. Probably some of my favorite action we have ever gotten in the Star Wars universe, right? Because the action was already really great in the Mandalorian television series, but it's even better in this film because they can take everything that really worked about the action in that show and then elevate it, put it on a larger scale, because they can do way more with a movie, and they really just take advantage of that opportunity to give us so much cool action in all these different locations. And then you have the performances in the film where Pedro Pascal is still great in his role as expected, and then you have Jeremy Allen White as Rada Hutt, which is it's a little bit jarring at first, but the more it keeps going, the more I sort of got used to it, and I was like, okay, this is pretty good. Okay, so I was editing the video and I completely forgot to mention this, so I'm just adding this in here. Martin Scorsese is legitimately great in this movie, and seeing his name flash on screen during the opening credits as an X-Wing flies by is legitimately the most hilarious thing I've ever seen in my life. It's amazing. I'm so happy that Martin Scorsese's in this film. He is awesome in it, and he's really good. I just wanted to say that. But then you have Sigourney Weaver performance where it's like you can just tell she just does not care whatsoever. Like, she's just giving such an uninterested and flat performance where it's just like, it's not a huge negative for me or anything. Like, it didn't take me out of it, but it's something that's certainly worth mentioning, as her character is rather important to the story. And speaking of the story, I actually think it's done pretty well here, where it explores an area of the Star Wars universe which I actually find fascinating, and that is the area that's like after the fall of the Empire but before the rise of the First Order. So sort of that New Republic era, and like I feel like we don't get to see very much of that on screen. So whenever we do, I really appreciate that, because I really feel like it's such a fascinating area within the Star Wars universe that just is open to a lot of creative license, since we don't really get to see a lot of it within canon, and we don't really know a whole lot of the specifics that happened within that time period, at least in canon. And so just as a whole, okay, this is an awesome movie, and it was so nice to see Star Wars back on the big screen. I had a great time here, and you should see it in IMAX if you can, because, I mean, it is just an incredible experience to watch in IMAX, okay? But yeah, so that's the newest Star Wars movie. It's amazing. If you guys enjoyed today's video or any of my other content, please consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.